please, you can please shift आगे थोड़ा आगे आ जाइए please.
I request everyone to kindly occupy the front seats. I also request Dr. Sanjay Bhadada, Professor and Head of Endocrinology Department, PGIMER, Chandigarh. Dr. Sachin Mittal, Founder Director, Sweet Diabetes Foundation, Chandigarh. And Dr. Rajat Gupta, Senior Consultant, Alchemist Hospital, Panchkula, to join them on the dais, please. Thank you, sir. May I now request Dr. Ashwini Parekh, Executive Director, BRIC NABI, National Agri-Food Biotechnology Institute, Mohali, to felicitate our chief guest, Dr. Parekh, to felicitate our chief guest, Dr. Jitendra Singh Ji, Honorable Union Minister of State, Government of India, with a bouquet as a welcome token. Thank you, sir. I also request Dr. Parekh to welcome Dr. Vinod Kumar Paul, Member Health, Niti Aayog, Government of India. Thank you, sir. May I now request Dr. Kakoli De Dasgupta, Scientist FDBT, to felicitate and welcome Dr. Ullas Kolthur. Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Kakoli, to welcome Dr. Ganeshan Karthikeyan. Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Kakoli, to welcome Dr. Sanjay Bhadada. Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Kakoli, to kindly welcome Dr. Sachin Mittal. Thank you. Dr. Kakoli, to felicitate Dr. Rajat Gupta. Thank you, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a slight modification in the program. Due to unavoidable circumstances, Secretary DBT Dr. Rajesh S. Gokhale will not be able to attend the session in person. Therefore, his recorded welcome address will be played.
Namaskar and a very good afternoon to all of you. Honorable Union Minister of Science and Technology, Dr. Jitendra Singh Ji, Honorable Member Niti Aayog, Dr. Vinod K. Paul, our esteemed panelist, Director BRIC CDFD, Dr. Ullas Kolthur, Director BRIC THSTI, Dr. Ganesh Karthikeyan, distinguished guests, scientists from across all institutions in the country, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for all joining today here on this very important and an urgent health challenges of our time. Even though this is an emerging health challenge, it already has reached an epidemic proportions in various clusters of our society. Obesity and metabolic health discussion cannot be more appropriate for this forum of India International Science Festival, because it's really society as a together, we need to fight this out and come to some understanding and implementation of activities. This rising prevalence of obesity in our country is a very deeply concerning problem. The projections indicate that by 2050, nearly 450 million Indians may in fact be overweight or obese. This trend, therefore, can become a public health challenge with full national epidemic proportions. Equally troubling is the limited understanding and awareness of the consequences of obesity and metabolic dysfunction. In fact, in COVID-19 pandemic, it was clearly demonstrated that individuals with underlying metabolic perturbations were more vulnerable and faced significantly worse outcomes. It reminds us that metabolic health is central not just to non-communicable diseases, but to our resilience against infectious threat. At Department of Biotechnology, we've been trying to address these challenges through various strategic portfolios of programs and individual projects. We have launched a mission-driven initiative on a double burden of malnutrition, integrating undernutrition and rising obesity into a unified research and innovation agenda. DBT has established Center of Excellence and cohort-based programs that enable deep phenotyping, genomic studies, and multi-omics profiling to understand metabolic disorders in the Indian population. We are also working on programs of nutrition and of microbiome research networks that will generate new insights into diet, lifestyle, environment, and the gut ecosystem, contributing to metabolic health. We also hope to set up bioclusters where diagnostics and programs like biomanufacturing and biofoundry can provide an ability to quickly scale up technologies and diagnostics that are developed across various institutions and across various countries in universities and academic ecosystem. At the same time, we continue to promote biotech-led solutions to identify precision markers and also early detection, prevention, and personalized management of metabolic diseases. I think today's session is an exciting opportunity for scientific dialogue. At the same time, it calls for an action as well. As a community of researchers, clinicians, innovators, and policymakers, we must harness this collective strength to develop science-led, equitable, and scalable solutions for India's metabolic health crisis. Thank you once again for joining this session today, and I look forward to an exciting panel discussion. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir, for your enlightening words on latest advances of biotechnology to tackle metabolic disorders. Ladies and gentlemen, obesity has become the most pressing public health challenge in India, as it is associated with a high risk of early onset of various lifestyle, metabolic disorders, and non-communicable diseases, including diabetes and cardiovascular diseases. The change in dietary habits over the last 40 years may have changed the gut microflora required for proper assimilation of food. In essence, the gut microflora have evolved over generation with a changing dietary habit that might have created an imbalance between energy intake and its expenditure, ultimately resulting in obesity and non-communicable diseases, or NCDs. As per WHO, 63% of all deaths in India occurred due to NCDs, which adversely affects the workforce and the economy of the country. The global costs of obesity have been predicted to reach $3 trillion per year by 2030 and more than $18 trillion by 2060. To tackle this upsurge in NCDs in India through policy interventions via clinical and basic research, we have with us Professor Ullas Kolthur, Executive Director, BRICS CDFD, who is going to deliver a talk on translating basic discoveries for public health, the increasing prevalence of non-communicable diseases. Professor Kolthur has received several awards and recognitions, including the Swarna Jayanti Award and the prestigious J.C. Bose Fellowship. He is one of the chief architects of National Consortium on Malnutrition, NCDs, and Aging, and has established an advanced research unit on metabolism development and aging called Arunda to bring together basic biologists and clinical researchers. Dr. Kolthu, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Honorable Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh Ji, Dr. Vinod Paul, and all the other dignitaries on the dais and off the dais. I would like to thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to present the outstanding questions and the unmet needs that I think we need to address as a community, and the importance of bringing together both the government machineries and the basic biologists to work together. Next slide. Okay, the talk is titled as Translating Basic Sciences, and one of the things that we have to recognize is there are several disconnects. One of the biggest disconnect is the connect between the basic biologists and translational medicine. The second thing is, even once you have addressed this disconnect, we also have to be cognizant of the fact that there is a huge gap between translating this with the medtech. Even if you have interventions from both basic biology and clinical bedside research, what works in a public health setting is also an important contribution, and we have not really harnessed this. Every intervention has to be considered based on the public setting and community settings. Now, this is very important because the government's aim of Viksit Bharat is hugely entwined between human potential, economy, and innovation, which is the forum for today's discussion. Unless you tackle the human potential, your ability to produce economy and innovation will be always hampered. Next slide. Now, all of us know that there are two major types of diseases that plague us. One is the genetic diseases. There are many genetic diseases in the country and in the world, but one of the biggest scare is the non-communicable diseases. In fact, if you look at the trajectories of disease from 1990s to 2021, in just the 3 decades, the number of deaths because of non-communicable diseases has gone up tremendously. Next slide. The WHO estimates clearly indicate that the death due to non-communicable disease is nearly 50% in Indian populations. And if you combine that with maternal and perinatal nutritional deprivations, it is much larger. It is well known that in India, the onset of metabolic disease is much earlier when compared to many other populations in the country. And we also have several high prevalence populations in India, which we don't understand why is the case. And we have a huge economic burden here. Next slide, please. Now, this is again a request to the minister and the policy makers, is that as much as we want to take affirmative actions, the global contribution in terms of research R&D budget is much lower for NCDs. In fact, if you see, the budget that is allocated for HIV and malaria and TB is much far greater than NCDs, and there's a huge need to tackle this. Now, more importantly, from a basic biology perspective or a clinical perspective, we don't have baseline information across populations in India and age groups. In fact, our current HDL-LDL ratios or the lipid profiles are based on Caucasian populations. India is also extremely genetically diverse, and we have several dietary diversities as well. We need to map genetic, dietary, and geographical diversities. We need to move beyond the measures of anthropometry. In fact, measures like body composition and metabolic fitness becomes extremely relevant. More even urgent is measures to assess efficacies of intervention. Niti Aayog and several other ministries have actually come up with several interventional programs, including Poshan Abhiyan and other programs, but we don't have good measures to assess the efficacies of interventions. Next slide, please. Now, in this context, it's very, and I'm happy to inform that there is an interdepartmental agreement between DAE and DBT to set up this unit called ARUMDA, which is Advanced Research Unit on Metabolic Development and Aging. And this is a paradigm shift because we are bringing together more than 25 to 30 institutions in the country, tapping into expertise that range from medicine to epidemiology to clinical research and also basic biology, involving some of the leaders in the sector across domains. So we work with All Indians for Medical Sciences, CMC Vellore, ICMR, and several other organizations. Next slide, please. Now, why is this important to address right now? As the Secretary DBT mentioned, there is this concept or the importance of double burden of malnutrition, and this is beyond economic burden. Next slide. Now, double burden of malnutrition can be described in multiple ways. One of the biggest and worrying trends is the ability of the children to have stunted and wasting when they're malnutrition. And the same kid, when he or she grows up to adulthood, they actually have higher risk of developing NCDs. So in fact, it causes a detrimental impact on the economy of the country, because children are not only stunted and wasted, they also have lower neurocognitive functions. That means they will not be able to compete for the best jobs in the industry. The other worrying fact is there's something called triple burden of malnutrition, which is inability to absorb nutrients, even if you provide supplementation. For example, the government's ambitious role of making anemia Mukt Bharat, we know that despite iron supplementation, we are not able to address anemia because there seems to be some resistance to uptake and utilization. We don't understand what mechanisms are causing this. Next slide, please. Now, this is relevant from even a policy perspective, because the median age of Indians right now is about 20 to 25 years of age. By 2050, or around the time of Viksit Bharat or Amritkal Bharat, the median age of Indians will be around 50 years of age, which is when you expect the age-related diseases to come up. If you look at the economic cost of this, double burden of malnutrition and NCDs, it's going to be several-fold higher, and we won't be able to reach the fullest potential of our country unless we tackle this right away. Next slide, please. Now, this is amplified by the fact that we have nutritional transitions in societies. In fact, consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages have doubled since 2017 to 2020, or 2007 to 2017. That means we'll not be able to address this unless we have a very affirmative, proactive measure, which starts from policy all the way to research. Next slide, please. Now, this is also captured well by the recent India study, which actually has mapped the prevalence of diabetes and pre-diabetes in the country. So I'm using this forum as an opportunity to call for urgency and implementation programs, where it's now believed that the next 5 years are important for decisive policy action. And if action is not taken before 2030, LMICs, including countries like India, will have a huge burden of NCDs later in the next coming 2 or 3 decades. Next slide, please. Now, how do we solve this problem? This is a huge socioeconomic burden. We need to understand deep dive biology, because simply measuring epidemiological prevalence is not going to help solve diseases. And all of us know that India is a very complex population. We have several genetic and dietary diversities. We don't even understand the prevalence of diseases across populations in urban, peri-urban, and rural and tribal villages. We largely depend on BMI-based measurements, which are actually misindicator of the health index. We have to move to more evidence-based indicators, including biomarkers and body compositions. Next slide, please. Next slide. So, for a clinician, here is a call out. When you have a disease, we only know about the disease based on the symptoms. But we have rarely bothered about what are the causes that have led to these disease and the onset, whether it was pre-pregnancy or pregnancy or neonatal or late in life. Unless you look at this as a trajectory of life course changes, you'll not be able to address NCDs or the burden of obesity when somebody is old. You have to start from very young age and probably as an intergenerational impact. Also, we forget about the socioeconomic factors that influence the NCDs, and there has to be a marriage of both social and medical and biological research to tackle this problem. Now, one of the other challenges has been that we have dealt with deficiencies in a unilateral manner. That means we tackle only iron deficiency or we tackle only protein deficiencies. Usually in populations, you have combination deficiencies, and the biology of how iron and protein double deficiencies impact biological outputs are not very well understood. So we need to understand and bring forces together, expertise across platforms to understand this. Next slide, please. Now, in this context, Arumda and the DAE and the DPT have taken very firm measures. We have actually set up what is called the National Analytical Facility for Nutrition and Metabolism Research, which is providing deep dive insights into metabolic markers and biomarkers to understand the progression and efficacies of intervention. We've also set up the country's first human metabolic chamber to measure energy expenditure at CMC Vellore. Only 25 such installations are existing all over the world, and this will be the first time in the country. This is going to transform the way we think about metabolic disease and obesity across populations. Next slide, please. Now, to tackle this, we can't do only cross-sectional or observational cohorts. We have to do multiple longitudinal and interventional cohorts. Here is an example of how Arumda's activities is doing this, again from adolescent girl macronutrient deficiencies all the way to understanding normative baseline for childhood development and also defining what it means to be a healthy adult in India and across populations. We are doing multiple populations, as I'll show in the next slide. Next slide, please. So we are now doing about 12 cohorts, again ranging from urban to tribal populations, and we are capturing the phenogroups that exist within these populations. And these are extremely important for us to achieve and help the government in realizing the aspirations of the public and also of the government towards Ayushman Bharat, Atmanirbhar Bharat, and fulfilling the promises of Poshan Abhiyan and Amrit Kal Bharat. Next slide, please. Now, here is an example how building bridges between clinical and basic biologists will help. While anthropometry is important, we need to combine new modern evidence-based methods, like, for example, using body composition, biomarkers using omics methods, and measuring things like lung function, also because climate change and pollution are realities that we have to tackle. Next slide, please. So I believe India has an opportunity here and also a challenge. India has a challenge because it has very young population which is going to go age rapidly in the next couple of decades. So we need to tackle this. But India also has an opportunity because in the global south, I believe we are the only country that has the infrastructural and expertise to tackle this. And in fact, what we do in India will have a global impact because of the huge diversity of populations. So unless we do this on a war footing, we won't be able to solve this problem. Next slide, please. I think this is my last slide. So I would use this opportunity to encourage the students, the clinical world, and the basic biologists to come together on a mission mode, setting examples of multiple multidisciplinary approaches to tackle this problem. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, that was indeed a very interesting talk. Thank you, Dr. Kolthur, for setting up the context for the next session of the event, which is a panel discussion on the topic, Metabolic Disorders, Unleashing Challenges and Unveiling Opportunities. The session will be moderated by Dr. Ganeshan Karthikeyan, Executive Director, BRIC THSTI, Faridabad. He is a clinical cardiologist and a fellow of the Academy of Medical Sciences and National Academy of Sciences, India. His research is mainly focused on cardiovascular diseases affecting low and middle income countries. Joining him for the discussion would be Dr. Vinod Kumar Paul. Dr. Paul leads the health, nutrition, and education verticals at the NITI Aayog. He has played a pivotal role in formulating the Ayushman Bharat PMJ, the Ayushman Arogya Mandir mission, and Poshan Abhiyan. The discussion will also be joined by Dr. Ullas Kolthur and Dr. Sanjay Bhadada, who heads the Department of Endocrinology, PGI MER, Chandigarh. We also have Dr. Sachin Mittal as an eminent panelist. He is an endocrinologist and is founder director of the Sweet Diabetes Foundation, Chandigarh. The panel discussion will also be joined by Dr. Rajat Gupta, who is a senior consultant and head of endocrinology and diabetes department at the Alchemist Hospital in Panchkula. Now I request Dr. Karthikeyan to kindly moderate the discussion. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. It's a great honor for me to moderate such an eminent panel with the Honorable Minister here. So taking a segue from what the Honorable Minister said in the fireside chat, what has changed in this country, at least in clinical medicine, is that 20 years ago when we were training, we used to think up an idea, and then when we used to go and try and activate that idea, we used to see that it's already been done. But now we are right at the cutting edge. We are able to do things on par and sometimes ahead of the world. So I think we have changed in that direction. So I want to first put Dr. Ullas on the spot, because he talked about the basic science that he's doing with respect to metabolic diseases. So Dr. Ullas, why don't you tell us about the... Okay. So Dr. Ulas is working on the basic science related to obesity, particularly in the Indian context. So it is possible that the Indian context is different from what we are taught. Basically, all the knowledge comes from the West. So we want to ask Dr. Ulas, what is it that is different about the Indian context when it comes to diabetes and metabolic disease?
Yeah, so that's a very loaded question. So one of the things that we have a misconception is, for example, obesity is only related to BMI. We need to understand that people who look lean actually might have much more physiological obesity because of skewed muscle mass to lean mass ratio. Now we believe that that could be ingrained in the early developmental nutrition that Indians are consuming, or also is epigenetically encoded from a long history of the lineages that we come from. So unless we understand why there are differences between populations, we won't be able to tackle this efficiently. The other most important thing is we rarely understand how calories are burnt within our bodies. We don't know whether the bodies prefer to choose to burn calories from carbohydrates, fat, or proteins. We have to understand more basic inputs in terms of how calories are processed and the major outstanding question of resource allocation. Without doing it, any interventional strategies might actually backfire because we might be solving a problem right now, but might be creating a problem for later because we might be inducing obesity that the person will pay the price much later. We won't be able to live to see that impact.
Thank you, Dr. Ulas. So the consequences of obesity and metabolic disease are very well known. I mean, some of it we see as cardiologists. One of the reasons is that patients are not aware and they come quite late in the stage of disease. So I want to ask Dr. Rajat, you see a lot of patients in your practice. How do you think we can improve awareness among the general public so that they are able to reach us much before in an earlier stage where intervention will be more beneficial and easier also? Dr. Rajat.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. So, as we have discussed a lot, that obesity is the leading sort of pandemic which world is seeing also in India. Now, obesity does lead to so many metabolic complications, including hypertension, diabetes, coronary artery disease. So people do recognize that they are overweight and obese. I'm going through some data, but that leads to diabetes, hypertension, other metabolic disorders. That awareness is still lacking. So how to increase that? Probably to create awareness, we have to basically open all the fronts, maybe through the media, which you know is accessible to now so many people, whether it's on the television, whether it's on the WhatsApp, whether it's on the various other things which people, general public see. So more and more visibility of the disease, like we have done. So we see one advertisement of Akshay Kumar, which says about genital health and smoking cessation at the same time. So that kind of awareness definitely for obesity and consequent diseases is not there at the moment in the mass media. So that probably needs to be done and done repeatedly and time and again, and to highlight the fact that in the early part of obesity, if you restrict or decrease obesity or the abdominal fat, which we talk about in new scientific world, then all associated metabolic complications, the prevalence of these disease and the new onset goes down. And it has been shown very clearly in various studies done worldwide and also in India. Second part of it, if we see high risk screening, which again has been emphasized by various associations, the people, the family members of the people, those who already have such illnesses like diabetes and hypertension, they should be screened at every point. So family members are very high target group. Then, as we know, as we see the upsurge of adult obesity, we are seeing childhood obesity as well. So we can target these population, especially in the school, gram panchayat or the sarpanch and all these asha workers. So all these things, all these domains of our society should be catered to, and the simple screening for just for the body mass index, height, weight, waist circumference, simple blood pressure measurement, or maybe point of care, blood sugar, blood glucose measurement, all these things, if we do in a large scale, and then because seeing is believing, so even if you ask a person that yes, you are obese and you are likely to develop this, until unless he himself see for that his hypertensive or his blood glucose levels are going high, so probably at each and every step we need to take it count, we need to make it count, and probably things will change because now we are seeing more and more people at much younger age
Right.
developing complications. Thank you.
Correct. So I wanted to come to Dr. Paul also on this. As a pediatrician, sir, you've seen the whole thing, and as a public health specialist, and now as part of government, what do you think we can do as a collective public health measure to improve awareness at all levels?
Let me first come on some of the research issues. I don't want to lose track of us being in the presence of very, very eminent scientists. I think there are 4 areas that I would like to be embedded in the collaborative, this and plus collaboration. Number 1, the CNNS survey of 18-19 showed that 10% of our school children aged 10 to 19, 10 to 19, 10 to 18 are pre-diabetic. I'm sure since then it would have worsened. तो obesity तो 6%, 8% कह रहे हैं, 9% हो गई शायद अब पहुंच गया होगा, लेकिन साथ साथ pre-diabetic status in terms of metabolic abnormality is 1 out of 10. So the research pathway is how to actually see, understand the dynamics of in childhood all these things are setting in, and what we need to do, what the dynamics are, and what are the opportunities for intervention. Corresponding to this is for action. Action in school is a must. The real battleground, if you ask me, is the school, where the habits are being formed, the food is being impinged in a certain way, and so on and so forth. So my extension of this logic is school children, because where am I looking for children who are adolescents and learning after 5 years? They are all in the school. Everybody is in the school. Very major effort. We, Honorable Prime Minister talked about, sugar boards, and so a beginning has been made. So understanding the life course from childhood as to how it shapes up, I think is the most important question that we need to. We are looking at the end. That's okay. But if you have to save the generation, next generation, we have to act there. Second point, very simple, is that 20% of our children born are small for gestational age. They are small, they are shrunk, they are stunted. Now these SGAs eventually face, or intrauterine growth retarded, growth restricted babies are more predisposed to non-communicable disease from the Barker's hypothesis. My issues are 2. 1, why it happened and so on. That's covered in the childhood obesity question that I raised. But the second question is, sir, unko khilayen kya hum? As a pediatrician and a neonatologist, my whole endeavor has been that I push them to the green range, into the so-called normalcy. Is that right? I don't know, because that may be making a difference irreversible. So the second question to therefore understand is, what are the earliest correct interventions and food, and of course prevention of inflammation and other things and so on, which we can intervene for those who are at birth stunted. And this population is not very much changing. It will still be there, currently about 18-20%. So they are the precursors of a large attributable fraction of diabetics later on. My third request to the scientists here is, we need a point of care hemoglobin A1C test. Now, the government of India have started screening for all those above 30 years of age annually for diabetes with a random blood sugar. Done. If it is abnormal, we move it to some referral pathways, medication, lifestyle change. But then how do you assess control at that level in crores of individuals? Because that's the challenge. You do need HbA1c, because bringing that in the algorithm will help. Currently, there are complexities. How do we test it? So making easier the diagnosis of control of diabetes and diabetes parameters and other parameters, but drawing from there, particularly HbA1c, introduction as a mainstream test would really be essential, So these are the 3 or 4 inputs on the research side, and understanding the SGA body composition and how they behave. I just said, I'm just clarifying. But in terms of prevention, again, as I said, school children are important. I think a stricter view on the availability of high fat, sugar, salt, foods and ultra processed foods. We must be very, very mindful of this. The Honorable Prime Minister has given a call for reduction in edible oil intake. I just want to bring data here because the scientists are here. In 1960s, the average per capita intake of edible oil was 3 kilos per capita annual, 3 kilos. 2000 it became 9 kilos. And the ICMR norm today says that we should be consuming 9 kilos or so per capita per annum. Today, as Indians, all of us, we are consuming 19 kilograms. We are already double, and the trend is rising. So behavior change, massive, strategic, evidence-driven communications have to be instituted, and I think this is just one of the suggestions I'm making. There are others, but I do feel that this initiative that you have started, this needs a little more refinement. There will be more ambition from other distinguished colleagues. Also ideas would come, but truly appreciate coming together. We have to crack this disease. This may not be the disease that we see in the textbooks coming from elsewhere, as we have learned over and over again. So I would urge that a major scientific effort in this regard that you have started should multiply and should move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So prevention is key, definitely. Now moving on to once we identify these people with diabetes, for example, the medicines, access to medicines is a very important issue, because control, like Dr. Paul pointed out, is very critical for preventing complications. So one of the challenges of treating diabetes in the country is access to insulin, for example. So I want Dr. Sachin, because he's got this foundation, which is Sweet Diabetes Foundation. So I just wanted you to shed some light on the access issues particularly with insulin in diabetes, type 1 diabetes.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So at the outset, I would just highlight a couple of data points to see where we are. So the number of individuals, I'm not talking about only children, individuals with type 1 diabetes living in our country is close to about 9.9 lakhs, so just short of 1 million, right? And about 15 to 16,000 new children less than 16 years of age are added annually. And if you look at what is the life expectancy, remaining life expectancy of a child with type 1 diabetes at 10 years of age, in India it's about 24 years. While in Israel, Japan and US, it's close to 70 years. So that's the kind of gap we have, 24 versus 70. And then when you go to the reasons for it, the reasons are actually multi-pronged. The reasons are, one is obviously the supplies and the insulin and the access to insulin at the right temperature in a big country with hot, humid atmosphere like ours. But then there is some other aspects of the care which are important, equally important. So this is a Department of Science and Technology program, and Honorable Union Minister is also here. So I'll just borrow an acronym DST to make things simple. D stands for disease. Disease basically means that the awareness that this disease is different than normal sugar is very important, right? So Honorable Dr. Vinod Paul is here. In his pediatrics career, he would have seen so many patients who parents only want to ask one question, Sahab, insulin to chhut jayegi na? Sahab, abhi to le rahe hain, insulin to chhut jayegi na? So the point to be highlighted to them is that it's not only the access, insulin when insulin was not there, the mean survival of a type 1 diabetes was few weeks. Now, in South Asia overall, it is about 24 years. In European countries, it's in 60s. China is about 46. So the issue is the awareness about the disease, that this is a lifelong condition. The insulin in type 2 diabetes is for control. In type 1 diabetes, it is for survival. That basic mindset is very, very important, because in our foundation, we have had situations where we have got the insulin supplied to so many people only to find out that the insulin was supplied but was not taken. So that is very, very important. In our diverse country, people have so many other opinions and options. So one voice that, okay, this disease is different, and awareness at HCP level, not only doctors, nurses, paramedics, it's very, very important that this insulin is essential for survival. Then the right treatment protocols. So in our country, insulin cost is not so much as what's there in US or European countries, but with right treatment protocols are not available because more than 50% of the patients still are on wrong regimen, the premix insulin regimens. So then the next, when you come to the S part, that's the supplies part. So supplies part, insulin is one aspect. The regular insulin and not the analogs, the regular insulin, they are reasonably more affordable compared to this. So by having a dedicated cold chain for procurement as well as, for the supplies part is very, very important. But very, very important than that is to train the persons. Even in rural health setting, even the doctors and the nurses sometimes are not aware how to take it in a right manner. That's very, very important. And T, that's where our biggest strength is, that is technology. So we can actually leverage technology where India is actually very strong. We have such a huge talent as Honorable Minister highlighted across all the age groups. We have such a huge talent and we can use telemedicine and technology. Ideally, type 1 diabetes should be a part of a juvenile NCD program. So if we have an NCD program, and Dr. Ullas highlighted about NCD burden. So juvenile NCD program should be there, which should not include only type 1 diabetes. It should include type 2 diabetes, obesity, asthma, heart disease. And when you have a juvenile NCD program, then you have a guideline. And then you have a structure happening. And then you can actually appoint a state level officer. That state level officer can do a capacity building. It can do a upskilling of that rural primary healthcare physician, the rural nurse sitting over there in far-flung areas of the country where the access of specialists is little and will always be a challenge. The last mile connectivity will be a challenge. Right. And once the patient is diagnosed in a rural area, through telemedicine, we can actually do a lot of...
Right, leveraging technology.
Yes.
Dr. Paul, sir, you wanted to add something. Okay. So one aspect was the access, and Dr. Sachin explained how this can be done in a very systematic way. I want to now come to Dr. Sanjay as a head of endocrinology at a premier research institute. I just wanted to, in general, for all treatment of all conditions, we rely on Western evidence. So the idea now is to switch, because we form about 20% of the world population, and we need evidence from our own population. So, Dr. Sanjay, how do we go about getting this? Particularly because there is now a whole series of new medicines where there is an access issue, there is an issue of cost, and how do we decide who gets what? We can't simply follow Western guidelines for this. So how do we change this?
Yeah. Thank you. And I think first and most important thing is that in cricket, if any player is not in the form, they say back to basics. The first basic is physical activity. So I'll request everyone, please get up for 1 minute, because we are already more than 1 hour we are sitting. So this is the very basic one, that we should be physically very, very active. Whether it is in office, whether in your workplace, whether it is your home, everywhere that physical activity is very important. So you can remain standing for 1 minute, then you can sit, please. So now the thing is that obesity is a lifestyle disease. Obesity is the mother of all NCDs, dyslipidemia, hypertension, cardiac disease, everything comes with the obesity. And the two important causes for obesity is lack of physical activity, excess of eating. Now, sir was telling that there is a new education policy is coming. I am not sure that education policy is talking anything about the physical education in the standard 1, 2, 3, 4, because what I recall is that at the 11th standard and 12th standard, there is a physical education subject is there. There is no such subject in our primary school. That is maybe very, very important to bring that into the fold. Now coming to the medicines, please sit down, please sit down. So now coming to the medicines. So the number of drugs are available, but we should remember that all these drugs are having some or other problems. It is not like that anyone can take any drug. And now the problem is that you are obviously talking about the GLP-1 receptor agonists. Those are the new kid on the block for the treatment of obesity. And what I see is that patients are coming when this drug molecule is not available in India. People are going to Dubai and getting those injections, and now people open this saloon for the getting this obesity treatment. That is very, very dangerous because these drugs loses the weight, but same time in weight loss, if they are losing 60% of weight, then they are losing 40% of muscle mass, and that we call sarcopenia. That is really very, very dangerous because you will gain, once you stop the drug, you will regain the weight. That is for sure. So how long to give? Nobody knows that. If somebody asks how long to give anti-diabetic medication, I'll say it is lifelong. Similar, the anti-obesity medication also may be lifelong, until unless the person is very smart that he'll switch on to his daily activity to change to reduce the weight or modify the diet. And these drugs are also having some suicidal tendencies also, and these significant sarcopenia. So these drugs should be prescribed by the trained physician person, not on the, it should be available on the over the counter. That may be very, very dangerous. But still I'll say the lifestyle, that is reinforcement is the most important thing to take care of the obesity, and rather than banking on the drugs, whatever new drugs are coming, and that is going to increase the, what you call, economy of the Denmark rather than it is going to favor in India because the drug is already there. Stop the important molecule insulin. Novo Nordisk, they are all working on this direction. So instead of talking about the drug more, I'll suggest that is required for very limited number of people if they are sticking to their lifestyle.
Right, right.
Thank you
Your
very
point
much.
is very well taken. Lifestyle is the most important intervention. So one final point of discussion, because we are now in a, this is a biotechnology session and we are at the cusp of bioinnovation. I just wanted to ask, come to Dr. Paul and maybe our Honorable Minister as well. We are competing now in the world stage. We are competing against the United States in terms of drug innovation, and China is, of course, leaping forward. So I just wanted to understand, how do we encourage our indigenous innovators? Because, for example, GLP-1 agonists that Dr. Sanjay talked about, they cost an arm and a leg. So we want these drugs to be innovated in our country, and China is already doing this. So how do we do this so that we are able to make drugs accessible to our population, affordable to our population?
Well, नीति तो यही है कि ये दवाइयों के ऐसी दवाइयां, इसी तरह से कैंसर की दवाइयां, बाकी सारे जितने भी challenges हैं, India should be a hub. We, all of us in our own ways are impressing upon the academia and even more so the industry that please move, let's move from volume to value. And therefore, I think the direction is clear. We should sensitize our industry and academia. But what would help in this gathering is to give a special call for this. Let us give a cross-cutting call across our science system so that we actively pursue molecules. And today, using artificial intelligence, it should be even more possible. Let's be in the game. And let this ecosystem that's represented here take the lead, and I'm sure the Honorable Minister may like to say a little more on that. But can I take this opportunity to make two important points? One, that please, when we look at national data on obesity, let's say, which is the mother of NCDs, I want to make a point that the different parts of our nation are facing a different level of problem, and in some states it's an emergency. And therefore, state governments on their own should also please make effort. Now, give an example. This is the geography where we are sitting. Chandigarh, Punjab, Haryana. Punjab, Chandigarh, Haryana. यहाँ पे बैठे. Chandigarh में NFHS 5, which is already now 4 years old, obesity among men is 34%, national 23. तो 1.5 time है. तो वो वाले yardstick से कहेंगे तो wait करेंगे. But more dramatic, obesity among women in this region where we are sitting, 44%, national 24. I won't be surprised that in the coming NFHS, this could be half of our women population and let's say close to 40% men. तो पहली बात यह है कि जहां जहां हम region में हैं, please let's start doing what best we can do by prevention and other things that are current tools, and we wait for better tools. So that's the first point. Second, messaging in the form of what it means to overeat and eat in simple ways should be done. For example, if young people are listening here, one slice of pizza is great, but please run for 30 minutes to consume it. One slice of pizza, please run for 30 minutes. तो ये बराबर हो जाएगा, no problem. One गुलाब जामुन is good, और 15 मिनट के लिए भागिए. तो मैं चाहूंगा कि ऐसे मैसेजिंग में हम सबको जुड़ना चाहिए सर. ये जन आंदोलन शुरू करना चाहिए सर. इसके ऊपर होनी चाहिए बात. But one last suggestion, input from me as a suggestion for research. What is needed in this ecosystem, sir, that you presented are the cohorts for intervention. Sure. So let's say a 5 lakh population, or let's say 5 lakh population, half a district. Can we demonstrate that we can make a change on the ground using what's available, A, primary prevention, to an extent? It won't happen dramatically, perhaps 20% change. Using all the strategies in the school and food and everything that you know of, and then demonstrate control of diabetes. At the same time, primary prevention, primordial prevention, secondary prevention, then all the pathway of control, ensuring that the lifestyle changes. If not, at least the drugs are given, and we end up with a normal HbA1c. This has not been demonstrated. We have the platform through Ayushman Arogya Mandir. कह रहे हैं कि ऐसे होना चाहिए, लेकिन करके कहीं नहीं दिखाया. करके दिखाने की जरूरत है. ऐसे 10 sites बनाते हैं और इस पे करते हैं मिलके. If we demonstrate, then only we can say all this works. Otherwise, it is an individual advice. At individual level, a doctor tells, you tell me to control my weight, I'll respond. मेरा weight 3-4-5 kilo कम हो सकता है. Diabetes. Population level पे change is a different ball game. So I urge that we have population change to translate करने के लिए हमारे पास implementation research cohorts को हमें बनाना चाहिए. और इसमें वो फिट होगा. वहीं पे आप डायग्नोस्टिक्स भी टेस्ट करेंगे जो नए निकल के आए हैं, नए बायोमार्कर्स भी देखेंगे. So that may be a good addition to the wonderful work that you all have started. Thank you.
Sir, I would request the Honorable Minister to.
I think most of the points have been included. I think without risking to be repetitive, first, that I think the basic point is that in the Indian society, obesity was never seen and is still not seen as a disease. It's more of a cosmetic issue. And even now, the tying of drugs that we've been talking about, this GLP thing and other things, they are being consumed as much or possibly more for cosmetic reasons rather for pathological reasons. So that is one fallacy. So the societal behavior towards therapeutics. And thank God, earlier on, till a few decades ago, or about a decade and a half, obesity was not even a cosmetic problem in India. It was quite a norm to be obese, even for the film personalities. If you see the movies of the 60s, the movies of the 70s, or the 50s, of late in the last decade and a half, it's become a cosmetic issue. So at least we are discussing it. Earlier on, because we are old-timers, none of the conferences we had a session on obesity. We did have on diabetes, we did have on metabolic disorders, but never on obesity. So now it's at least being discussed. So I think that is a change. So luckily we belong to the generation which has seen this change happening. Secondly, as has been rightly put by others also, the Indian phenotype is different. So we have to also see things in that perspective. For us, from the pathological point of view, or the disease preponderance point of view, more than the obesity, it is the central obesity which makes all the difference, or the visceral obesity, which is evidently more higher in the oriental population than in the western population, and which is also among all the medicos known to be a risk factor independent of the overall obesity. In fact, way back in 90s, there was a study done when the CT scan has just come into use, where we actually scanned a couple of Indians vis-a-vis a couple of Westerners, and could show that the apparently obese-looking Westerners didn't have much of fat inside. So that is one S. So we have to understand that. And the third part about this drug is, which is I think most important, which is actually might have also inspired this discussion, because it's become quite a fashion having a session on obesity. I think this is the third time I'm coming. And the earlier two sessions I had film stars as my co-panelists. So it's become such a, in thing. about this drug, because I don't know, most of the colleagues also have a different view, and of course it's being rampantly used, at least in the city of Mumbai, more than anywhere else. And the justification given is that we have an FDA approval. Now, FDA approval, by and large, is done after 5 years or so. But in the clinical practice, those who have been in this business for decades together, we have seen the outcomes or the side effects or whatever effects happening after several number of years. I'll give you a simple example. In the 1970s, there was a big boom of these refined oils. So it became a fashion, taking sunflower, all kinds of refined oils, and everybody started giving up the traditional edible oils. And somewhere in the 90s, there was a study done in Mumbai which showed that the consumption of the refined oils had gone up from nearly 4.5% in the general population to almost 45%, because it's so rapidly picked up. But correspondingly, the prevalence of heart disease had also gone up. And then they started thinking, what is amiss? And the concept of omega-5 and omega-3 and all those, the entire lipid balance going haywire and, proving more distant. And suddenly they said, no, you take desi ghee. So after 30 years, they started the singing song of grandmother's ghee after consuming. So I don't know. So I am still, I'm not judgmental, but I still don't have a final word on this. And now, as Dr. Sanjay was mentioning about the sarcopenia thing and the muscle wasting happening. This has now got a new term coined in the recent weeks or months, which is called Ozempic faces. From the face, you can make out that this man is taking the drug. It's become so notoriously famous. So what he was talking as sarcopenia is now earned the name of Ozempic faces. And I don't want to name, but there are some of the film celebrities who have that face. And you can make out that they have taken this. So I don't know what's actually going to be the outcome of it, and maybe the collateral effects where else it could be predisposing to. So unless, of course, it's absolutely essential. So I leave it to the open judgment. But there's so many other aspects to it, and most of all, as Dr. Paul also said, when he's talking of awareness, the equally important is checking the misinformation. In India, the problem is not dissemination of awareness or information. The problem is how to check the disinformation. Now, even in the capital city of Delhi, every colony has one dietitian sitting. Nobody knows what is their qualifications. And there's an issue which I'll bring to the notice of Dr. Paul, because he's looking after the Niti Aayog also. We have checks and balances for the doctors like us. You have to get registered, you check their degrees, you ask them to get registered. But there is no check on the practitioners who are not holding medical degrees. So they are free to practice. And every colony has a dietitian. And they are giving all kinds of fancy formulas, some telling one meal, some changing menu every. So I think all this is going to complicate the problem rather than to check it. Of course, obesity being with all its other complications. Earlier on, we said in an outdoor, any third patient coming to the OPD, when you take the history coming for any other complaint, would be found to be having underlying type 2 diabetes mellitus. Now it is said any patient coming to the OPD, third one is fatty liver. So the spectrum of these metabolic consequences is also enlarging. So I think we need to have a more scientific way of looking at it, and the policymakers also need to devise some new methods to check that the untested formula do not find consumers outside. So I think that's that's a few words without being repetitive. The rest has already been said. So and last but not the least, as Mark Twain once said, economics too serious a subject to be left to economists alone. And we saw that happening when economists ruled the country. So in case of obesity is too serious a subject to be left to endocrinologists alone or a physician alone. This is a problem of the social concern, of the cultural concern, of the traditional habits, and more of the market dynamics, the market exploitation because obesity has become a lucrative business now. So I think the stakes are very widely spread and everybody has to take a call. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I think that was very well said. You summarized the entire thing. So I'm going to, in the interest of time, I've been asked to stop this session. Thank all our eminent panelists and thank you very much.
Thank you, sirs, for the insightful and thought-provoking discussion. I now invite Dr. Kakoli to kindly felicitate all the dignitaries with a memento. Dr. Kakoli to felicitate Honorable Union Minister of State, Dr. Jitendra Singh Ji. Dr. Kakoli to felicitate Dr. Vinod Kumar Paul. I request her to kindly felicitate Dr. Karthikeyan. May kindly felicitate Dr. Ullas. Dr. Sanjay Bhadada. Dr. Sachin Mittal. And Dr. Rajat Gupta. Thank you, everyone. So we have now reached the end of this session. I now invite Dr. Kakoli, Scientist FDBT, for proposing the vote of thanks. Vote of thanks. Not required. Ma'am, huh? Not required.
Due to shortage of time, on behalf of Department of Biotechnology, I express our heartfelt gratitude to Honorable Minister of State, Independent Church, Science and Technology, Art Sciences, Dr. Jitendra Singh Ji, to attend this session from its busy schedule and making it so insightful and energizing. Thank you, sir. Your words truly have always been inspiring to us. My sincere thanks to Dr. Vinod Paul, Member Health Niti Aayog. Thank you, sir, for your valuable perspectives on diabetes and actionable steps for early intervention and preventions. My sincere thanks to Secretary DBT Dr. Rajesh S. Gokhale, who have joined offline, and he has always been a guiding force for us. My heartfelt thanks to the distinguished speakers and moderators and panelists for their thought-provoking, lucid discourse and practical perspectives that will directly inform the research and policy conversations going forward. We're sure that this dialogue will help bridge clinical realities with cutting-edge science. Thank you all for your time and contributions. Thank you.
Hello everyone, you are required to be seated. We are about to begin our next session, the last session of the day. It's going to be probably